Welcome to the Dynasty 365 show. Guys, I am your host, Stacy Chris. Tonight we have got the Dynasty DV, Mr. Chris Burns with us, and our Fantasy and Frames CEO, Mr. Jorge Edwards, is filling in for us while Tyler abandoned us. He's off gallivanting in Europe. So we are going to hold down the fort for him. We're going to talk about how week 2 treated our favorite rookies. Let's do it. Guys, what is up? How's everybody doing tonight? Chris, how are you?
I am just peachy. How are you doing tonight?
I'm peachy also. That's a great phrase. That's underutilized phrase. Just peachy. I love it. Jorge, what's up? How you doing?
Well, kind of like self-conscious now because I don't have an underutilized phrase to throw in there after Chris's. So I'll say I'm doing well. I am a little jealous of Tyler. I'm happy to be here. A little jealous of Tyler because this Sunday he's going to be partying up with Bill, going bar hopping over in London. So you can only imagine the crazy times that are going to be happening there. But really awesome to be here and be with you too.
Well, we'll tell Tyler, like we told Bill on his birthday episode, don't end up in jail because there's nothing that we can do to help you from here. So just stay out of jail, please. Stay out of jail. All right, guys. So make sure that you are dropping your questions and comments over on into that chat. If you have any kind of waiver questions, start sit questions, anything fantasy related or not fantasy related, throw it on in there. We will get to it tonight. Guys, there are a few things to talk about before we get into our main topic. Because like some crazy stuff has gone on in the last few hours here leading up to the show. But what's first off, let's talk about Nick Chubb injury going down. Really, really sad to see that happen to such a great player. But so for, we got to talk some fantasy purposes. This is a fantasy show. So I want to talk about Jerome Ford. What's the craziest amount of fab you guys have seen go for him? Chris, let's start with you.
I've seen it all. I've seen 100% of the budget go for him. I've seen as little as $1. Like in different leagues, it just really, really depends. He's been all over the board. And I don't blame people for picking him up. The Hunt signing, of course it matters that they sign him. There's more competition in the backfield, but I don't know to what extent that signing is going to matter, if that makes any sense. I feel like Chubb was only bought back just because of his knowledge of the system. I don't think it was because of his football prowess the last year and a half. Last year he looked pretty bad. So I expect there to be a committee, but I don't think we're going to see, that Kansas City Kareem that a lot of people are thinking that might come back, that thought that Chubb was the only thing that was holding him down. So it wouldn't surprise me to see Ford still lead the committee and Hunt kind of be used like he was used last year, but I really don't know. It really can go either way.
Yeah. Jorge, what did you think about that Kareem Hunt signing?
Not much. I kind of anticipated Jerome Ford was just going to be the guy. I mean, they had the choice of keeping Kareem Hunt. They didn't bring him back. It's funny. I don't know. Well, I don't know. I know that you all use Sleeper as your fantasy platform. So therefore you must have gotten the notification as soon as the Hunt signing was done, where somebody from Sleeper sent out a message where it was like rattling off Kareem Hunt's stats from the past 20 games. And it's like 20 games, 500 yards, close to 3 yards per carry. I'm like, you're not selling this really high, but they were like fire emojis next to all these stats. I'm like, this is not fire. This is bad. So reinforcing the Jerome Ford, preference there.
Maybe they're just trying to talk themselves into it. Maybe they're so desperate that they're throwing out fire emojis thinking I've got to hype myself up for this. Otherwise I'm just going to cry and it's going to be the end of my fantasy season. Maybe we'll just give them the benefit of the doubt there. All right. Last and probably biggest deal of what happened today. Cam Akers got traded to Minnesota just like a couple hours ago. So I was never a big Madison fan. And it kind of looked like I might have been a little bit right about that the first couple games. But Chris, like, what do you think about this trade? How do you think Akers fits into that Minnesota backfield?
First of all, I'll say that I think it's absolutely amazing for Cam Akers. For him to play anywhere other than LA with Sean McVay, I think it's going to be good for him. Like, I don't know if it's going to be good for football, but it's going to be good for him. Ever since that he got there, it's all been kind of like weird, like the benchings that nobody saw coming, or playing behind like clearly less talented people. So it's just really kind of been weird. Hopefully he can go to Minnesota. He can revive his career. I think he's more talented than Madison, but at the same time, I mean, clearly there was some issue that kept him from being on the field when he was out in LA. So I don't know if that off the field thing is going to something with it, or if it was just that dynamic between him and McVay that where it just didn't gel. So again, got to see how it all plays out. I think that it's going to be a committee again. I think that if you kept Akers or you bought him really cheap, that you're in a position where it could be a boom for you, or it could just be a situation where you're like, why did I keep this guy? And he's clogging your roster for the next few weeks.
Jorge, do we need a 30 for 30 about why Akers and McVay couldn't get along?
Oh, absolutely. There has to be some like off the field drama, behind the scenes, something going on. I think, after that, there should be a sequel to that 30 for 30. And it's like 30 for 30, Alexander Madison, Cam Akers, who's the most inefficient running back? And why are they both being trusted to be the leaders of the backfield for the Minnesota Vikings?
What if I told you 2 mid RBs?
Yes. That's fantastic. What's up, Albert? We see you over there in the chat. We see Hollywood too and Gator J in there. Guys, again, make sure you're throwing your questions on in that chat for us to get to a little bit later. This question's not on the sheet. I'm going a little rogue here, but are we starting Cam Akers
this week?
Yeah, this week.
No.
Oh, not this week. Can he play this week or no?
I guess technically he could, but I don't think they're going to throw him out there this late into the week of practices.
Next week. So next week, are we starting him next week?
For me, no. I want to see what happens first, like see what kind of usage it might be. He's still got to get a little like up to speed on what they do out in Minnesota. But the good thing for him is that running back is the easiest position to fill in the NFL. Like it's just, a lot of plug and play. Like when Christian McCaffrey went over and like he was getting 70% of the snaps in 3 days or something like that. So, but I still want to see what happens first.
Yeah, it's like they teach the running backs the blocking assignments of the offensive line, but then it's like at the end of the day, the running backs coach or whatnot, it's very simple. It's like, hey, so you see this massive hole that's in front of you, run through it. That's all you have to do. Versus like timing and the timing of routes and where to how many yards to go downfield. For a wide receiver, much more difficult. Hit the hole. There you go. Boom. Running back. I mean, I'm oversimplifying that a lot, but to Chris's point, it's probably the easier position to fill in.
I know some running backs that would not be happy with your assessment there, Jorge.
Yeah, well, what are you going to
How easy their job is. Might be a reason why they're all upset they're not getting paid.
I mean, it's true. Grab ball, run ball. There it is.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. All right, guys. We love running backs here on the Dynasty 365 show. But what we really love talking about, especially this week, are our rookies. So we're going to be checking in this week on our favorite rookies, how week 2 has treated them, how they have adjusted after their first week in the NFL. So Jorge, I want you to tell me, who is your boom player for this week? Who came out of nowhere and just really impressed, really took over, really showed what they were made of this week? Who's your guy?
Mr. Nathaniel Tank Dell for the Houston Texans. Come on down. 7 receptions for 72 yards and a touchdown. That's 16.7 half PPR points. The head coach came out last week, D'Amico Ryans, and said, we're going to get him more involved in the offense. And it was pretty evident as he was the wide receiver 1 on the team in target share and wide receiver 2 in first read percentage. We saw his snap percentage jump from 48% in week 1 to 79. He led the team in targets. Nico Collins got, a ton of yardage, and that's where we saw his boom potential this past Sunday versus the Colts. But it was really encouraging to see what Tank Dell did. And so soon into the season, it's kind of one of those things where you would have thought, wow, words, grammar, that they would ease him in gradually. But and what makes it even more impressive is, the offensive line for the Texans. I think four starting offensive linemen were out of the lineup on Sunday. So I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, CJ Stroud is going to get murdered. But he found a way to get Tank Dell the ball. Tank Dell's average depth of target was like 9 yards downfield. So, he was just checking it down to Tank Dell, and Dell made the most of it. It was really impressive.
I'm a big Tank Dell fan over here. But Chris, you have another Texan as somebody who boomed for you this week.
I do. And so we're just going to keep it rolling. So to piggyback off some of the things that Jorge just said, the reason why Tank Dell had a boom week was because his quarterback CJ Stroud had a boom week as well. CJ Stroud, he improved on his rookie debut, and even though he was missing a plethora, $5 word for the day, a plethora of offensive linemen, he still went out there and he did his thing. He threw 30 or 47 for 384 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. And which is really good because I think a lot of people were kind of worried, like how week 1 went, like not really knowing what to expect. So he came out and he showed well. He looked like it was, the game looked like it was going to be like a heavy run script, between the Colts and the Texans just because of the 2 rookie quarterbacks. But, he definitely was the bright spot along with Tank Dell, and not much else was really going for him on offense, So I think the owners really should feel good about Stroud right now. Like, he's still hovering in that QB2 space, like the bottom end of the QB2 in super flex formats. And so, like, the more he plays, I think the better he'll get. And, yeah, I loved it.
Yeah. I definitely, I'm going to talk about both those guys in a little while towards the end of our show, but yeah, big fans of both of them. Also a big fan of Puka. Can I keep saying that? Are we allowed to continue talking about Puka? Because that's who I picked for my boom. Even though, look, I know that was probably the easy pick, a little low hanging fruit there. But don't worry, I'm going to talk about some of my favorite players a little bit later. But the guy had 25 receptions in his first 2 games. He broke an NFL record this week. I was definitely on the train of, if you get him on waivers, why would you start him against San Francisco? Of course you wouldn't. You're not going to start Puka against the San Francisco defense. Are you kidding me? Like, he had even better numbers than he had the week before. He had 15 receptions, 147 yards. It was just absolutely unreal. And if he can do that against San Francisco, you're starting him every week until further notice. I don't know how you can justify keeping him on your bench after that. He still needs to get in the end zone, right? I think the Stafford's only thrown for 1 touchdown so far. So he needs to get his boy Puka some TDs. And, I'm sure that'll happen, pretty soon. I think that's only a matter of time. But also wanted to say special shout out to Marvin Mims. 20 points. No thumbs down.
You did that against my Commanders. I'm sorry, that gets a thumb down immediately. Impressive performance, but that happened on Sunday.
Well, that's fine. He's not. Yeah. Well, anyway, Marvin Mims, 20 fantasy points on 2 catches for 113 yards and a touchdown. I never doubted you for a minute, Marvin. Neither did any of the rest of us. We love you, Marvin, on the Dynasty 365 show. Even Jorge loves you. He just can't admit it right now.
Yeah, there we go. That's what we'll go with. Yep.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Gator says he's an absolute starter going forward. Are you talking about Puka or Marvin Mims? I'm pretty sure you're talking about Puka. I don't think you're talking about Marvin Mims just yet, although I have a good feeling that that's coming. All right, so we did the good stuff first, so let's talk about the bad stuff. So our rookie bust for this week, not necessarily an indictment on them for their entire rookie season, but just for last week, who didn't fulfill their potential? Jorge.
In what should have been an explosive, which it kind of was to a degree, matchup between the Lions and the Seahawks. When the game went to overtime, right? So you would have thought that every single weapon at the Lions' disposal would be in full force, full effect. We heard after week 1 oh, Jahmyr Gibbs we're gonna ease him into it. He's gonna be more involved. Everybody after the Chiefs game in week 1, like, oh my God, he was so efficient. He's so this and that. The only problem is he may be great at all these metrics, and he may be great when he has the ball in his hands, but he only had like a 37.5% snap percentage. He only got 57 total yards, 7 receptions. I mean, and if you're in a full PPR, that's like 12 points and change. Okay, I guess you could be happy with that. For half PPR, that's only like 9 points. Like that's not good. And chances are you drafted him thinking like, oh, he's going to break the mold. He's going to be like one of those running backs that's so talented that he's going to be worthy of a second or third round pick in your fantasy drafts for redraft purposes. For Dynasty, again, same principle. You were drafting him early in the first round of your Dynasty rookie drafts, and you were thinking he was going to be an immediate starter, and he just hasn't been. And again, not an indictment on him as a player. Given hopefully he gets more opportunities going forward, especially with David Montgomery being out a few weeks with that quad injury. They're going to have to rely on him, and it's I don't know. It's just very disappointing, and it's making me question a lot of the I don't want to say competence, but just like the frame of mind of what this Lions offense is like thinking. Like why are you not using him more? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to preserve him? Are you trying to cover up something? Like I don't know. There's something odd going on there. Like they should be using him a lot more.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I've got beef with their coaching staff right now because all we heard in the preseason was, "Oh my gosh, this guy's amazing. We're going to use him all over the field, all kinds of places. We're going to use him everywhere." And I just feel like I have been hoodwinked. I just, I've been taken for a ride over here. They are not doing what they said they were going to do, and it is really disappointing because I think he's a great, talented player, and I would love to see him on the field all the time. But I do have a question for you because this happened today, and shame on me for not popping that in the show sheet. But I saw Bam Knight got activated and put on the active roster. Does this is nothing, right? Is this a nothing burger?
Look, I was super impressed with Bam Knight last year when he came on for those few games that he was the starter, for the Jets. Does this do anything? No, not really. Like theoretically, this should be a Jahmyr Gibbs game coming up next week, but usage has not dictated that opinion, which may or may not be brought up later on during the show. So to answer your question, no, that does nothing for me in terms of anything regarding Jahmyr Gibbs.
I just realized that we're going to have the Bijan Gibbs Bowl next week, right? Because don't they play the Falcons?
Gosh, that's right. Yeah.
That's going to be an amazing game. I'm so pumped for that.
10 touches between the both of them.
Oh, who can they use less?
But Bijan is just so damn efficient. Like I see highlights all the time of him like making these cuts and making people miss. Just he doesn't. All he needs is 10 touches and he'll be fantasy relevant.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's everything they said he was. I think so far. I mean, I know we're just going into week 3, right? But right. I think he's everything they said he was. He was who we thought he was, right?
Exactly. Dennis Green, may he rest in peace.
In the most peace. Chris, tell us who your best player was.
Okay. So my best player for week 2 is none other than Mr. Quentin Johnston. And what can I say about Mr. Johnston? Unfortunately, not a whole lot. Sunday, he was targeted twice. I mean, he caught one of those targets for a whopping 7 yards. So he got 7 yards more Sunday than I did. He's clearly behind Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Palmer in that wide receiver room. And he's even like behind like the tight ends, like I've seen them being more involved in the gameplay than he was. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on right there, but in 2 games, he has only seen 5 total targets. 5. Like Puka had that in like the first 5 minutes of his first game, so it's very hard to get production when you don't see the field. So in any leagues that you have him, feel absolutely comfortable to bench him until something changes because you have to have better options. So in Dynasty, so I'm not saying drop him or cut him or anything. Like, I mean, he's still young in the season as well. So let's just see what happens. But Yeah, I mean, you should not even consider starting him until further notice.
Stacy, was it you that sent a message in our group chat about Stone Smart,
Yes.
the tight end, getting some work this past weekend?
That's right. He did get some work this weekend.
I'm wondering if we need to, get Andrew Cooper from Fantasy Alarm on standby and say, hey, you promised if Stone Smart had a game where he went off or at least caught a touchdown, you would come on 365 again and shotgun beers with us. So maybe we should remind him of that in the near future.
I got to tell you, I had that clipped and ready to go. His the box score where it was showing Stone Smart got a reception, and in my head I was like, oh, I should tweet this at Andrew and remind him. And I got distracted with something and completely just forgot about it until right now. So Andrew Cooper, if you are listening, if you are within the sound of our voices, just a little reminder about our bet about Stone Smart. If he gets a touchdown, you got to come back on. We got to shotgun some beers, Stone Cold Steve Austin style.
Exactly. And it's crazy. He'll probably get more fantasy relevant action than Quentin Johnson, which is horrible to say.
Hey guys, so in redraft, are we dropping Quentin Johnston at this point?
I would have had to have a really deep bench to roster him. So chances are he's probably still on a lot of my leagues waiver wire.
Yeah, same for me. There's no reason to clog your roster with them.
Yeah, I feel that. Hollywood wants to know, does somebody say beer? Hollywood, you'll have to come on that show too when it happens, because I feel like there's a lot of weeks left in the season, a lot of opportunities for Mr. Smart there. All right, guys. So my bust, and I hate to say this because I had such high hopes for this guy, and it could still happen, I was so excited to Sundays watch him play, watch him in this backfield. That is going to be Devon A-Chain. He was inactive week 1. I know. I'm sorry, Chris. I'm so sorry. If my Packers had any players that weren't doing well, we could talk about them, but they don't.
Wow.
Bam. Shout out Jake Reed, Luke Musgrave. Sorry, guys. Poor Devon was inactive week 1. He's had 3 snaps, 1 carry for 5 yards. 5 yards. And 1 target for 4 yards receiving. He couldn't quite get past Salvon Ahmed for the number 2 spot behind Mostert, who just had a flippin' amazing week 2, 158 yards for 3 touchdowns. Mostert, I hope you guys started him like I did, because that worked out very well for you. Jorge, in our Fantasy and Frames League, you took Mr. A-Chain with the 12th pick in the first round. And I feel like it's hard to not be a little disappointed, right? Because I think we all had such high hopes for him at this point. I mean, do you think that he can get it back on track?
No.
No.
Not if everyone stays healthy. He's not going to work into the rotation. Salvon Ahmed is getting work, over Devon A-Chain. And Raheem Mostert, as long as he's healthy, that's who they're going to run it through. And we haven't even talked about Jeff Wilson, if and when he comes back this year, him sliding into goal line work for the Dolphins. They would have to do some serious trimming on that running back roster to get A-Chain to come into fantasy relevance. The one thing I will say is that in the preseason, he looked a lot better as a receiving option than he did as a pure runner up the middle, or just runner in general. So that could be something, when the Dolphins play a high-powered team like the Chiefs or something, which I don't know their schedule. So, just another high-powered passing offense. But aside from that, I just don't see it.
Yeah. Chris, this is your team, so I want to ask you, how do you, are you a little sad about Mr. A-Chain right now? Do you have hope?
I'm not really that sad, and I do have hope. So he was inactive week 1 because he got injured on that preseason game when he got body slammed on his shoulder. So they're trying to ease him back in. Last week was his first week coming back where he actually got some contact and everything. So even coming to this game, they tried to ease him in. As far as Salvon Ahmed, So the thing that people don't know about this guy is that he is a roller coaster. So he is on fire sometimes, but he is not consistent at all. So right now, he really caught fire at the end of the preseason, and he solidified his spot on that team. And most is always going to be the thing also. Well, so Ahmed, I don't know if you've seen him run the ball the last couple games, but his roller coaster is on the downslope. And this is going to give A-Chain time to get on the field. Plus, we have the most injury prone running back room in the league right now. So Mostert, yes, he crushed it. He did his thing, against the Patriots. Do I expect him to not be nicked up, come week 5? No, he's going to be hurt. A-Chain will get his chance to get out there on the field. And once he gets on the field and he makes some explosive plays, it's really, really going to open some eyes, and it's going to give Mike McDaniel, the mad genius, some extra ideas on how to use this speed in space. If you have 2 Tyreek level juke masters out there on the field, I mean, that is crazy. So I think it's going to be later in the season. I don't think you can expect anything from him up front, but come later in the season, possibly around that time when you're making a playoff push, I expect Devon A-Chain to be somebody that, can give you some juice.
Well, I hope you're right, because I really like him, and I want to see good things for him. All right, guys, we got a question in the chat here from T Money Reacts. He wants to know, he's got an 8 PPR, 2 flex, Fields, Jacobs, Kyron, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Olave, Ridley, Puka, Hawk bench with Hunt, Goff, Miles, London, Dell. T Money, I'm going to need you to put some parentheses or some commas in here. The next question for us, because we got a lot of names. So he's got Miles, London, Dell, and Cup. He wants to know, should he trade Cup and London for Eckler and Christian Watson, and then try for a Puka and a Ridley for a Devontae Adams one for one? That's a lot of names in there. We got a lot going on. You got a nice little team though there, T Money. I like it.
So I'm assuming this is Dynasty, right? I would not trade Puka and Ridley for Adams. Adams is getting older. The decline is eventually going to start coming. So I would stay put with youth on that side. And plus, you like what's going on with the Jaguars offensively. Yes, Ridley had a down week. The entire Jaguars offense had a down week. That's not going to be a consistent thing. Chris, what are you thinking as far as trading Cup in London for Eckler and Christian Watson?
I think it really, for me, I do it. Just because I think that when Eckler comes back, that he is going to absolutely feast. I think Watson's joining that team that doesn't really have a lot of firepower when he does. And Jordan Love has really looked a lot better than I think some people really expected. He's been out there dealing. Yeah, that's the side I'm leaning on. It's close. It's not going to blow you away. But with Cup, we're still worried about what he's going to be when he comes back, if he comes back, because that whole injury was pretty weird. And Drake London, as long as he's playing for Arthur Smith, I do not trust him at all. Not even a little bit. So I would make that move. But I understand arguing the other side. But for me, no, I'm taking Eckler and Watson.
Yeah, I think you had me in the first part, but then not so much in the Puka and Ridley for Devontae, but definitely the Cup in London for Eckler and Watson. I think if you can make that happen, that's probably a pretty good trade for you. But yeah, I mean, as much as I love Devontae, and Devontae is one of my favorites. Yeah, he's getting a little old, getting a tiny bit old. There, especially if you're talking about for Dynasty. There's Team Money. He's in the chat. He says, "Thank you. Sorry for the comments. That's okay. You'll do better next time, Team Money. We have faith in you, and your grammatical prowess." All right, guys. So next up, we are going to be talking some rookie waivers. And guys, don't forget to keep throwing those questions in there, just like Team Money did. If you've got them, send them to us, and we will get to them before the end of the show. So rookie waivers. So I want you guys to pick a rookie who should be on your waiver radar this week. If your waivers haven't already run, sometimes they, run over Tuesday, some run over Wednesday. But maybe if they've already run, maybe you can go grab them off, free agency, see if somebody's out there. So Chris, tell us who your pick of the week is.
Okay, so for my pick of the week, I'm going with Michael Wilson from the Arizona Cardinals. He is rostered in 5% of sleeper leagues. So far this season, he has 8 targets in the season, which is actually 3rd best on the Cardinals. 5 catches for 75 yards, and he's looking like he is the 3rd receiving option behind Ertz and Hollywood Brown. Rondale Moore, don't know what happened to him, but he's not getting those looks at all. The Cardinals are not a great team, and they project to play from behind most of the season. But Josh Dobbs, he actually looked, dare I say, good last week. He looked a lot more comfortable, and he was throwing the ball. He dropped some dimes. So Wilson, I mean, he really could find himself as a useful deep flex, especially if something happens to Hollywood or Ertz. And I mean, when these bye weeks and everything starts coming up, he could be somebody that you plug in and that can give you 5 to 10 points or whatever to get you over the hump while you're dealing with people missing time. And I understand it is the Arizona Cardinals, so don't expect him to shoot the moon, but I mean, he might can get off the ground a little bit.
There you go. All right. There we go. I see Jamie in the chat there saying, thank you, Jamie, for asking everybody to hit that like button. Very nice. Thank you very much. Jorge, you cheated with an IDP player here. So Hollywood Titan, I hope you are still in the chat and still listening, because this is free. I feel like this one's just for you right here.
Yeah, definitely looked at roster percentages for rookies. It's slim pickings. So I decided to go to the IDP side of the ball. I want to talk about a rookie linebacker, plays for the Vikings out of the University of Cincinnati, talking about Ivan Pace Jr. We've seen his snap percentage go up, week after week. Last week, he was basically the de facto middle linebacker against the Philadelphia Eagles. And for those who are kind of new to IDP, middle linebackers are kind of like your tackle machines. They theoretically should be racking up the most tackles, trying to stop the opposing team's running game or tight ends that are coming over in coverage. Mostly the weak side linebacker, let me back up a second, handles more coverage duty. So it's really the middle linebacker that basically is your run stopper. And they tend to accumulate more tackles, which give you more fantasy points more often than not for your fantasy league, depending on your scoring settings. Like I said, he locked himself in to the starting linebacker role, I believe, last week. He was second amongst all the linebackers for the Vikings in tackle efficiency, which is fantastic. He, one of the things for IDP and some could be, same thing for running backs on offense. You want to see a 3-down roll. You want to see somebody who's going to be on the field more often than not, because that's going to translate into more opportunity for fantasy points. And his 3rd down snap percentage is not great. I want to say it was around the 40s as opposed to being closer to 100. But I think it's just a matter of time. He's still getting his feet under him. It's only a matter of time until he gets that snap percentage where you want it to be a consistent person in your lineup. According to Fantasy Pros ECR, he's listed as a linebacker 49. The chances are he's still available on your IDP league's waiver wire. Depending on how intense your IDP league is. If you have 3 linebacker spots, he could make a good linebacker 3 for you. And the way he's trending could have definite LB2 upside. So Ivan Pace Jr., pay attention to him, because if you're watching the broadcast of the Vikings-Eagles game, I guarantee you saw him on your screen on a lot of plays last week. So just keep that name in the back of your head.
Guys, and if you are interested in more amazing IDP content, make sure to stay on our channel. 10 p.m. Shoot the Gap is going to be on. You're going to get all the IDP info that you can handle and more. Make sure you are keeping it right here if you got your IDP questions. And my guy, I kind of mentioned him earlier tonight. That'd be the one, the only Mr. Jaden Reed from the Green Bay Packers. Guys, he is my waiver wire. Hello. Pick up for this week if he's not already taken in your leagues. He's rostered in 19% of sleeper leagues. So that tells me that he's out there in a ton of places. None of the leagues that I'm in, because he's on my roster. But he led his team in targets with 11. So far, he's got 85 yards, 2 touchdowns. I'm not really sure when Christian Watson is coming back. So that's a big reason why I keep throwing him in my lineup. It's a flex spot. I did this week and it paid off. And honestly, though, for me, even if Watson does come back, I feel like that Reed has really kind of has either earned it or is on his way to earning that number 2 wide receiver role, which is something kind of we actually predicted on the show earlier this year. Big shout out to our boy Bill, who's a big Jaden Reed fan, has been talking him up since early spring. Green Bay plays the Saints next week, and I think you can really I look forward to him continuing to be a red zone threat. That is Jaden Reed, not our Bill. So if you if he's out there and you're looking for another receiver, I would definitely go grab him if you can. So, all right.
Yeah, he's definitely like becoming like a good red zone target, like you're alluding to, which is kind of like, you know, with the way the Packers offense has been in recent years, you know, you kind of think of the tight end as like the red zone option. And so I'm wondering if those two rookies, Musgrave and Reed, are going to kind of cut into each other's, you know, options, so to speak.
Yeah.
But the dude's just been balling out the past couple of weeks, so it's kind of hard to ignore, and just leaving him out there, knowing the upside that he's shown thus far, even with Christian Watson eventually coming back, you know, it makes total sense.
Oh, it does. I mean, and Musgrave has played a huge role too so far. I wouldn't say huge role. That's probably being a little, generous. But he's definitely been out there. They are going to him. So I think, I wasn't really sure what we had, earlier in the, preseason and everything, getting ready to go in to the season with our, with Jordan Love and the rest of the guys. But I'm very, very cautiously optimistic with what I've seen so far. Guys, last but not least, we're going to do some start sits with our favorite rookies here. I want to know who you're starting, and I want to know who you're sitting. Chris, you've been quiet for too long. You're up.
All right. So my start for next week, you should start Zay Flowers because he is the man. Zay Flowers of the Baltimore Ravens. I think you should start him next week. Even with Mark Andrews coming back in the lineup, Flowers, his targets, they dropped a little bit. He went from 10 in week 1 to 5 in week 2. But what is encouraging is what he did with those 5 targets. He caught 4 of them for 62 yards. He was involved in the game plan. And that Ravens offense, I mean, it seemed to have more life in week 2 than it did in week 1. And I expect that it gels more, like the more they play together and they get used to this new concept that they're running. OBJ, he's dealing with an ankle injury. They say it's minor, but not sure exactly how long that's going to take because, OBJ and his injuries, you never really know. Bateman, he is Bateman. He is not Michael Bateman. He should not be confused with the Dark Knight also. He ain't Batman. So, I mean, not really somebody you should worry about, I don't think. In week 3, the Ravens, they host the Colts, who boast the 4th worst passing defense according to Pro Football Focus. The Colts can be thrown on, and I expect Flowers to be an active participant in that. So he's my rookie start.
He's somebody that I wish I had more of in my drafts, 100%. Now that I've seen him get out there, he's looked amazing. Did you guys see that Kim Kardashian's being linked to OBJ?
Saw that.
Yeah.
Career's over. His career's
right?
over. That's it. Definitely.
Woo!
Whoa. Hollywood, what's going on here in the chat? Sorry to interrupt there. Start Stacy, sit Jorge. There's no love going on here. Yeah, so.
Well, before we get to your sit, Jamie wants to know if Kyren Williams is the real deal or is he going to fizzle out?
I think that Kyren is going to, I think he's going to be sufficient. I don't think you're going to see him perform like he did last week, for the rest of the season or every game, but I think he'll be sufficient. Especially, just looking at what's left on that team. Zach Evans, maybe he'll get in, he'll get some shine a little bit, but as of right now, Kyren appears to be the guy that McVay trusts, kind of like Henderson that year where he was getting all the love. So, if you have him, hey, ride him.
What's up, Preston? We see you over in the chat. All right. So, Chris, who are you sitting this week?
Okay. So my sit of the week is going to be Zach Charbonnet. And I'm sitting him because I just cannot trust him to produce for me. In his first 2 games, he's seeing 25% of the snap share, and that's compared to Walker's 62%. Charbonnet on the season, he has 7 carries for 27 yards, 2 receptions for 14 yards. Unless he sees the field consistently, he is extremely hard to trust, and you have to have a more reliable option right now. I do think that, I don't know. Yeah, I got to sit him. I can't trust him.
All right, so I have a question for you about this, because you guys know I'm a big Charbonnet fan. I have been for a long time. So Seattle drafted him so high. They drafted Walker last year. Everybody was kind of like, what are they doing? Why are they taking somebody again, the year right after they just took, their star guy? And do you just feel like, given that this is such a heavy run first offense, do you feel like the lack of consistency that we're seeing from Charbonnet is surprising? Do we think it's going to get better as the season goes on?
I know you love him, and I'm the wrong person to ask this question. His draft capital, Carroll and Seattle, they always do weird stuff in drafts to me. I don't really understand what they're doing. So there's no rhyme or reason to it. So that's one thing. But I am not surprised by the lack of consistency, because I never really understood the love affair. I can only picture him when he was at Michigan, just disappointing me. But the lack of usage, yes, I am surprised by the lack of usage. I do believe that more than likely, as the year goes by, that he will be inserted into the offense a little bit more, because Walker, he's going to need somebody to spell him. And like you said, they did draft him kind of high, so they want to get him out there and make use of that draft capital. He may be the greatest player ever. I'm hoping that he has a wonderful career and he becomes a Hall of Famer. I am also 100% okay with missing out on him.
Oh, all right. So Jamie wants to know, would you rather have Charbonnet or Roshan in Dynasty? Jorge, I'm going to go to, Chris, you answer, and then Jorge, I want your answer too.
Roshan, easy for me.
Okay.
So for those who are watching who don't know, Jamie, in all of our mocking after dark drafts this summer, he is a Roshan Johnson junkie. So I feel like you're setting yourself up here for the correct answer in your mind, but you're not wrong. Roshan is who I would want in Dynasty.
I don't feel comfortable answering this right now. I want it. My heart says Charbonnet, but my mind says Roshan right now, just based on what we've seen. I don't know, guys. The heart wants what it wants. Jorge, who are you starting?
For me, it's pretty easy for me. Jordan Addison, come on down. He is becoming a staple in this Vikings passing game. Played close to 70% of snaps in week 2 versus the Eagles. He's literally becoming one of Kirk Cousins' favorite downfield threats. And I'm sure he can do a lot more than just being a deep threat. That just happens to be what you're seeing as far as big plays are concerned for Addison, which is great. Give me more yardage, give me more fantasy points, give me touchdowns. I'll take all of it. And, given the passing volume that this Vikings offense has shown last year and is continuing to show this year, he's an automatic start for me every week.
So I bet you guys thought that Marvin Mims was my highest exposure player, but you would be wrong, because it's Jordan Addison.
Wow.
So I guess Marvin needs to hear that you're not so much a fan of him as much as you.
Oh, we didn't say that. That is not that is not what was implied there. So who are you sitting then?
I talked about him earlier. I'm not starting Jahmyr Gibbs until I see production. I get the opportunity is there with no Montgomery. I don't care. I understand the necessity for needing to start certain players depending on your roster depth at the running back position or any position in general, but specifically at the running back position. At the end of the day, I don't care if a player was drafted in the first round or they were drafted in the 7th round. If they're not performing, there's no reason why they should be on my starting roster going into a matchup. Do something that makes me want to start you. Don't just go draft capital mattered in August. During the season, that's out the window. So it's about what have you done for me lately? And he hasn't done much, so I'm sitting him this week.
There you go. Well, so speaking of what have you done for me lately, my start is going to be somebody that, again, we've already talked about a little bit, but we can talk about him all show long if we want to, because that's Tank Dell. Love Tank Dell, 5th rookie wide receiver overall in yards so far with 106 on the season, 10 receptions, 1 touchdown. He led his team in targets in week 2, number 2 in yards, because Nico was just like a revelation this week. Where has this Nico Collins been? All our lives. So hopefully that keeps up. That's great to see. CJ Stroud is thrown for 626 yards thus far in weeks 1 and 2. He leads rookie QBs in yards by a ton. And he's the 4th overall in yards with big boys after week 2. So that's pretty impressive from that Houston offense. Like to see it, like what we've seen so far. They play the Jags in week 3, guys. I don't really see, not that I'm down on the Jags or anything, but I just don't really see any reason why we're going to see Stroud slow down, and therefore why we're going to see Tank slow down. So start him if you got him in your lineup. If you got him, throw him in your flex spot. And last but not least, the second best jawline on the Las Vegas Raiders is unfortunately needs to be on your bench if you have him. That's one Mr. Michael Mayer. You guys know who the first best jawline on that team is. We don't need to say his name. We all know.
We do not objectify on this show, Stacy.
We don't objectify. It's just facts, though. It's facts, which we are perfectly able to report and encouraged to report. So you're sitting Michael Mayer. Guys, you're sitting Michael Mayer. You probably weren't really considering starting him anyway, unless things have just gone horribly awry for your team. He had 1 target, 1 reception, 2 yards last week, and a big old fat bagel in week 1. Not great, right? And it's not like, Austin Hooper is out there just getting all the work, because Austin Hooper got 3 receptions for 40 yards total. Not good. It's an offense that's not great. They've looked especially bad against the Bills this week. I don't see that getting much better, unfortunately. It seems like also they've got a ton of injuries this week. None of which are in the tight end position. So I think, Hooper's still out there for whatever that is worth. So you're not starting Michael Mayer, and you probably won't for a while. But he sure is nice to look at. All right, guys, maybe we just objectify just a tiny bit there. Guys, this has been such a fun show. Thank you to everybody who has been in the chat so far, asking us questions, throwing comments in there. We love to see all the interaction from you guys. You can make sure to follow us on Twitter. You can follow Chris over at Dynasty Deviant. You can follow Jorge over at Jorge B. Edwards, and you can follow me at Stacy_Perez83. Make sure to run on over, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. That way you're getting notifications of all our shows here on the Fantasy and Frames Network. Make sure to stay tuned. We've got 4th and Frames coming up at 9 o'clock. We've got Shoot the Gap at 10. Gonna get you a lot of fantasy information on your Wednesday night. Guys, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. We will be back next week. Don't forget to check your lineups, and have a great night.